This is why I stopped smoking and drinking. Hi friends, I hope you're doing well. Ooh, there's something in my mouth. I didn't really plan this out. It hit me about 3 minutes ago while I was eating my lunch, and I was like, I have to record a video on this. This is why I stopped smoking and drinking. So it might be a bit of a longer video considering I'm going to go into my experience with both cannabis and alcohol, and they are very different, but I'm gonna try to keep it short and sweet. I was a major stoner. I was a pothead for about 4 years, I would say. I started smoking weed when I was a senior in high school. Actually, I started smoking and drinking when I was a senior in high school. Don't recommend underage drinking, just saying. I was in a relationship for all of high school where I didn't really have friends. I didn't really do anything. I never went to parties. So I didn't really experience any of that until my senior year, which honestly I'm grateful for because I think you are so young in high school. You really don't realize how young you are when you're in high school. I think everyone feels like they're grown in high school, but you're not. And I'm really grateful that I wasn't putting substances into my body as a 15, 16-year-old. 17 was still far too young. I started smoking weed when I was 17. It was October of my senior year of high school, and I smoked for the first time in October, and I didn't get high. I didn't feel anything. And then I smoked again in November, and I got so high. I can make a whole separate story on how weed used to affect me and stories I have, because truthfully I have a lot of really funny stories that came out of me smoking. I have a lot of funny high story times, so if you want to hear that, let me know. But I got so unbelievably high the second time that I ever smoked that it really scared me, and I didn't smoke again for several months. I would say I didn't smoke again until the spring of my senior year. And when I started smoking again, I started smoking pretty frequently. My friends, also, it's so Pennsylvania. The first time I ever smoked weed, it was out of a corncob pipe. How, that Frosty Snowman with a corncob pipe and a button nose. Yes, that was me. I didn't have a button nose, though. I was just smoking absolute hemp out of it. It wasn't hemp. It was just the shittiest Pennsylvania weed you could get. But I got so fried off of it. I hope you can't hear my couch creaking and squeaking in the background because I can't sit still for the life of me. So yeah, I started smoking again in the spring, and it gradually became where we would smoke every weekend. Mind you, I never thought I had an addictive personality, which is interesting considering there's a lot of addiction within my family, so I should have known. But you also grow up hearing, oh, you can't get addicted to weed and all of these things. So I just sort of ignored it, I guess. And also, I was a kid. I didn't really care. I didn't really think about anything. Even though it's really fascinating because I grew up very close to addiction. So I had always told myself I would never smoke, I would never do drugs, all of these things. And then I think eventually you start to develop your own opinions on weed, and to me I was like, this doesn't seem like a drug. Whatever. I really wish I could go back and talk to my younger self and just understand why I started smoking. I'm not gonna say I wish I never did. It didn't fuck up my life by any means. I think I just did it to fit in. Like I said, it was right after a breakup of a relationship that I had been in since I was a freshman. So my freshman, sophomore, junior, and beginning of my senior year was spent with this guy. And I wasn't really allowed to have any friends during that time. Don't blame him at all. We were both children. It was just one of those, trauma bonds. Regardless, I didn't really have any friends. I didn't know who I was. And I was just trying so hard to be okay after that because it was really difficult. High school in general was difficult for me. So then after that breakup of my best friend, I was like, I am gonna die. So I was just trying to find friends anywhere I could, and I found this group of people, and it just so happened that they smoked weed, and it just so happened that they invited me one day to go on a hike with them after school, and I went, and they were smoking, so I smoked. And it wasn't so much, maybe it did have to do with wanting to be accepted by them. I wasn't peer pressured by any means. So maybe it did have to do with wanting to be accepted. Maybe it had to do with wanting to just numb something, or out of spite of my ex, because I was like, you would have never let me do this, so I'm gonna just say fuck it and do it. I don't know. like I said, I don't know how it happened so quickly, going from like smoking once every several months to smoking on the weekends, and eventually it turned into me and my friends meeting up in the school parking lot before school would start, because senior year, a lot of my friends and we didn't have classes the first couple of periods, so we would meet at the beginning of the school day and just drive around and smoke, and then go into school high, and we had to walk through the office knowing like damn well everyone in that office had to smell it on us so badly. We would spray ourselves with perfume and cologne and stuff, but it's just like we had to reek. And I remember not liking the way weed made me feel as soon as I started smoking. I never liked the feeling of being high. I just enjoyed the act of smoking. And honestly, I've done a lot of reflecting on why I kept doing it in the beginning, and I really have not come to any conclusions. I don't know, it made me feel anxious. I would feel high for days after I smoked, and I hated it because I felt like I would never go back to normal. I really just wasn't enjoying it, which is so fascinating that I went to do it for 5 years after that. 4 years. That happened, and then I graduated high school. Mind you, I remember for my high school like graduation walkthrough, where you walk through your elementary school and middle school and all of that, stoned out of my mind. My friends and I were hitting a dab pen on the back of the bus, driving to elementary schools in our cap and gown. I was so stoned. I was so stoned for my graduation. It was just so much of my senior year experience was just a blur because I was stoned the entire time. It's sad because my performance in school really was affected by it. I was a straight A student. I had a 4.2 GPA all of high school. I mean, it was a mixture of that, of weed. It definitely played a big toll into it, but also senioritis kicked in, and I think senioritis mixed with smoking is just not a great combination. I also had gotten into like all of the schools I'd wanted to go to. Like I got accepted into Penn State. I got accepted into a lot of really good schools. And I sort of just, the second semester of my senior year, I was just like, I don't care. I don't give a I don't care anymore. Why would I care? I got into all the schools. Like, what's the point of continuing to try? I'm just going to have fun. So I remember the last 35 days of school, I did not show up to my accounting class once. Because what would I be doing instead? Driving around smoking weed. That's crazy. That's really crazy. That's really crazy. And that's to me where the addictive personality thing comes in, because it's like I wasn't just doing it in moderation, like after school or something like that. I would do it before school and miss my classes. And I was never a kid to miss classes. I was straight A, miss goody two shoes, get on. I wasn't goody two shoes, but I just had really good grades. And I really cared about school, and I just stopped caring. I ended up not going to college. And sometimes I do wonder how much of that had to do with me smoking. Would I have went to college if I never started smoking? Probably. Who knows? It's interesting. Graduated high school, and then pretty much that summer I started smoking. The summer after I graduated, I started smoking 24/7. I would drive to my friend's house, we'd have coffee, and we'd smoke in the morning. And then we would just smoke every hour. And it was just constant. That was for years. And didn't take very long. I would say in 2020, probably, I know I felt the entire time I smoked weed, I had always been like, I don't really like doing this. I don't really want to do this anymore. And then I started smoking a lot when it hit. And I mean a lot. I smoked so much during the pandemic. That was the one thing that really I leaned on a lot. Which is really fascinating how when I started my business, I was smoking so much, and it did help me a lot creatively, I will say, but I started to realize this is holding me back in a lot of ways. It's hindering my productivity a lot. I really don't like the way that I'm feeling. I just hated it. From the summer after my graduation in 2019 until the summer of 2020, I smoked every single day, at least 6 times a day. I'm not kidding. I couldn't cut back. I just couldn't do it. I tried. I wanted to. And I had also convinced myself in that time that I needed weed to help me sleep. I needed it for my anxiety. I needed it for to help me eat. Like, I needed it for all these things. And I know that was me just making excuses for myself, because I knew it wasn't good for me. I knew I didn't like it. I knew it wasn't having a positive impact on my life, but I also knew I didn't want to quit for whatever reason, and I didn't have the willpower. And honestly, I think a lot of it was just, it was such a good distraction for me. It was the only thing I had to look forward to, which is so sad, but I looked forward to going out into my car, the whole like ritual of smoking. You know, I loved rolling a joint or rolling a blunt, and I loved playing my music and singing and smoking in my car. I wasn't driving, but I was just sitting in my driveway, and I would do that for like an hour, just sit out there and smoke. And then I'd go inside and be so stoned, and then it'd start to wear off, and I'd go do it again. And my home life was hell for my entire life until I moved out. And I love my family. I have such a great relationship with them now, but when I was living at home, it was really not good. And smoking weed was such an escape for me because I looked forward to it and it made me feel better. Sometimes I really do dog on myself of like, I wonder why I ever did that. Or, you know, just looking back and being like, I could have made better decisions, whatever. But please, if you're doing that, give yourself grace and know that whatever you did to survive is what you had to do. It's what you did, and that's okay. Forgive yourself for the things that you did to survive. Forgive yourself for the things that you did to get yourself through it. Even if it's not what you would do now, that's okay. That shows that you've grown. But forgive yourself, forgive your past self for what you thought was best in the moment, okay? I was just doing what I could to get by, doing what I could to escape my reality, if you will. So yeah, I was just smoking a lot. Actually, my friend, he would come over every single night and we'd roll a blunt. I would love to know how much money I spent on weed. A lot. It's not cheap, especially the amount that I was smoking, rolling a blunt every single night and rolling several joints a day. Like, I smoked so much. So yeah, my friend that would come over and smoke every single night. Also, that's another part of it. It felt like such a bonding activity. You know, if it's like, okay, I don't know. We'll get into that as well, because I've noticed with drinking a lot as well. Smoking and drinking are two very bonding activities, and it's very easy to build your friendship with the foundation of whatever substance you both are doing together. And I think a part of me was scared, what if I quit doing this and I lose this friend, or I lose these people in my life, or what if they don't want to hang out with me anymore? What if they stop inviting me? What if they think I'm weird? All of these things. So my friend and I, actually, the friend that, you know, we would smoke blunts together every single night, we were both like, why don't we take a tolerance break? And we were like, let's just do a week. And I remember I made it one whole day, and then on the second day I smoked. And that was sort of when I was like, damn. Oh, damn. That's not good. So I went back to smoking, and I kept smoking. And I knew in the back of my head, I really want to quit. And like I said, the entire time that I smoked, I knew I didn't really like it. But it wasn't until that summer when I was like, I really want to quit. And I thought about it every day. I might be getting my timeline mixed up. I don't know. Because eventually there came a time, okay, that whole year until the next summer of 2021, I kept smoking. And then summer of 2021 came around, and I was like, I am going to really try to quit. I'm going to try to stop. I don't want to do this anymore. I really don't feel good. And I also realized it was holding me back a lot within my business. I also was broke as absolute so I was like, let's just try to stop for 30 days. That's what I told myself, because every time I would try to quit, I would fail because it seemed like such a big task in my head. Like, oh my God, I'm quitting. And then it would be this whole thing of like, I don't want to quit. Like, let me just smoke one more time. Let me just have one last joint. Because the idea of giving up your favorite thing, your favorite coping mechanism, oh, that's scary. Because like I said, I really grew to love the act of smoking. So the reason that I decided to quit was because it was holding me back. I hated the feeling of being high. I never felt normal. So I decided in the summer of 2021 that I was going to take a 30-day break. I guess this is also like why I quit smoking and how I quit smoking, because that was the hardest part for me, was figuring out how to do it. And I know it sounds so stupid to people who've never done that before, but it's like, it's not easy, dude. And I know people say you can't get addicted to weed, but that is such bullshit. You can get addicted to scrolling on your phone. You're going to sit here and tell me you can't get addicted to a substance you put in your body? You can get addicted to anything. Maybe it doesn't have addictive compounds and addictive chemicals in it like other drugs do, but you can absolutely develop a dependency and an addiction to cannabis, without a doubt. I would know because I did. Not gonna sit here and pretend like I wasn't. I was fully dependent on it. And I wrote down a pros and cons list of all of the reasons why I wanted to quit smoking weed. And the pros were literally just like, it's fun. And the cons outweighed the pros so much. I constantly had brain fog. I could not wake up in the mornings for absolute shit. I'd wake up and I'd feel like there were bricks on my eyelids. It was so difficult for me to wake up. I, first of all, hated the feeling of being high. I did not enjoy being high at all. Isn't that funny? Doing the thing that I hate feeling, whatever. It was really hindering my productivity. I felt like it was hindering my relationships with my friends and the way that I showed up with my friends and the way I showed up in my business. I felt like such a muted version of myself. I did not feel like I was living my life to the fullest. I just didn't like how I felt. I never felt sober. And so I quit. And I was like, I'm just going to make it 30 days. And I was like, 30 days is a doable goal. I can do 30 days. And I started, it was really difficult. It was really, really, really difficult the first week. The first week was definitely the hardest. Number one, because I still felt high. It took me, I'm not kidding, 2 whole weeks to stop feeling high. And that was really hard for me because I hated that feeling. That's why I kept smoking so often, because the feeling that like of coming down off of weed, I hated that. Hated that feeling so much. So that's why I would always go smoke within an hour or two so I didn't have to feel the come down. But I felt the come down for about 2 weeks. I just felt like I was in a dream. I felt like I was in a bubble. I felt like I wasn't real. And that's the other part of it, is I really have struggled with dissociating for a really long time due to like my childhood trauma. Cute. And I was in a consistent dissociated state for about 4 years. And I'm still working through that, because dissociating is already hard enough to like work through and stop doing after trauma. But the dissociated state that comes with smoking weed and coming down from that, like I will still have times where I wake up and I feel high. It's crazy. So like I said, it took me about 2 whole weeks to stop feeling high. And that's why it was really difficult to stop and to continue on, because I was like, I want to go smoke so I don't have to feel this way anymore. But then I realized, well, I'm going to have to feel this way eventually. Because for me, I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I don't want to be caught in this cycle of knowing that I don't want to do this and never stopping. Why can't I stop? I just wanted to go 30 days to show myself I could, because I felt so stuck and I felt like claustrophobic within my own habits, because I was like, if I can't stop, what would happen if I needed to like go travel or go do this or go do that and I'm freaking out because I can't get weed? I don't want to feel like that. I want to know that I'm in control of my life again. So I want to quit, even if I start smoking again. My goal was to never quit forever. My goal was just to know that I could stop, and that's why I did the 30 days. And so that was one of the really hard parts, was not smoking when I felt high still and didn't want to feel the come down. And the other thing was not knowing what the hell to do with my time. Like I said, I would wake up, and especially in the summer, like that was my favorite thing to do, was wake up and go sit out on my porch and get an apple juice and a water and make a breakfast and get my book and read, or in the afternoon read and paint, or with my sister we would roll a joint and go drive through this little creek area by my house and have the windows down, or I'd go for a hike with a joint, or I'd go hang out with my friends with a blunt, or I'd sit out on the porch at night with a bowl. And it was just like every activity that I did involved smoking in some capacity. And a lot of the times the main activity I was doing was smoking. It wasn't going on a hike with a bowl. It's let's go smoke and hike, or let's go smoke and read. It's not let's go read and I'll have a little joint with it, So that was another thing, is I was trying to discover myself again and trying to figure out what to do instead. So I went on a lot of walks in the morning. This was like I've never felt this good until that point in my life. Like that was the best I had ever felt in my life. I would wake up at like 6 a.m. and I would grab myself a little protein shake, and I would drive about 15 minutes away, and I'd go on a 4-mile walk every single morning, because I was like, I need to start my day off good, and by, getting some sunlight into my eyes, by developing some serotonin, some dopamine in a natural way, and to show my brain that I can feel good without smoking. So I'd go on a walk every single morning, 4-mile walks every single morning for the first 30 days, and I felt so good. And then I'd get home and I'd do a little workout, and then I'd go on walks in the afternoon just around the block. And I really started reading a lot then. This is the summer that I started reading. Not nearly as much as I read now, but that is the summer I started reading. Summer I turned pretty, if you will. And I learned so much about myself. All of the things that I just told you are why I stopped smoking weed initially, but there are so many things that I learned about myself and how weed affected me after I quit smoking that was really interesting to me. One, the munchies were also a bitch. And two, when I was high, or not even high, when I was smoking weed, because like I said, I would feel high for about 2 weeks after. When I was consistently smoking, I hated my body. I hated myself. Like, I remember I would post something for my business and then go onto Instagram after I had smoked and, like, want to delete my entire Instagram page. I hated the way my body looked. My upper stomach would get so bloated. My body just didn't like it. My anxiety was actually worse. My sleeping was actually worse. My eating habits were actually worse. But I found the confidence thing so interesting. I second guessed myself so much when I smoked. I got a lot of paranoia when I smoked. It affected me in so many ways that I thought were just normal to me, because I was high 24/7, so I thought this is just a part of my life. No, it's a part of your life due to the fact that you're smoking. Like, these things wouldn't be happening if you weren't smoking. So, yeah, I felt the best about my body. Like, that was truly the first time I had ever loved my body that summer. The summer that I stopped smoking was the first time I ever liked my body. I did lose a little bit of weight due to walking 4 miles every morning and not getting the munchies at night. It's so fascinating because I look back on that summer a lot, you know, and just being like, damn, I loved myself. I felt so good. I had a different glow about me that summer. I'll insert pictures of myself from that summer. Like, I had a different glow about me because I felt alive for the first time. I literally felt like I had woke up from a 4-year-long dream. And it was incredible. And I remember getting to 30 days and I was like, I'm going to keep going. And I kept going for quite some time. And that was really the start of me quitting. And then I would have times here and there where I was like, oh, I just want to smoke. So what I would do is I would get like CBD and rosemary and I would smoke that because I wanted to smoke, but I didn't want to get high. And that was all super fun. So that all happened and I was doing really good. And then the fall time started to come around. And I don't want to like throw anyone under the bus or do anything like that, but just some shit went down in my family. And yeah, it was a lot and it was really triggering and I was like actively being traumatized. I was not well. I was really having a hard time. And so I started smoking again to try to cope. And I don't blame myself for that at all. Would I do that now if it happened? I don't think so. But it is just like, I didn't have any healthy coping mechanisms. It was cold out, so I wasn't going for walks. It was a lot. So I started smoking, and then I just fell into a really deep depressive episode due to what was happening. Started smoking, started eating, ended up gaining 30 pounds in like 2 months, which is really, really wild, and went back to absolutely hating myself. I started traveling a lot. I went to Boston and Mexico, and then I came back and I ended up going back to Mexico for a month and a half to try to get out of that situation that I was in because I was like, I can't be here. Damn, I'm just now realizing how up and down my relationship with weed has been. There'll be times where I stop and then I'll start again. So I obviously wasn't smoking at all when I was in Mexico, and then I came back and started smoking a little bit here and there, and then I moved to Boston last summer, summer of 2022. I moved to Boston, and weed is legal there, so I would just go to the dispensary and buy joints, and I would smoke, honestly, every day. But I did not have an unhealthy relationship with it. You know, I would smoke only at night, and I'd make one joint last an entire week, and it was just more so to relax. I would do it when I would journal, but it wasn't like an activity. My life wasn't revolving around it. And then I left Boston and moved to Florida. And that's when I was like, I'm not going to buy weed because why would I? Like, I wasn't super dependent. I wasn't dependent on it anymore. So when I moved to Florida and I wasn't in Boston anymore, I was just smoking in Boston because it was convenient. And I was like, why not? And then I moved to Florida and then I started drinking. So almost immediately when I moved to Florida, I lived in the Tampa area. I lived in St. Pete. I started going out to bars to try to make friends. This was the first time I had ever really went out to bars. I had 2 nights out when I was in Boston, but I was never a drinker ever. I never really drank besides like The summer after my senior year of high school, we would drink on the weekends, but it was never a lot. So yeah, I moved to Florida and I started drinking on like Friday nights, and then that turned into drinking on Friday and Saturday nights, and that turned into drinking on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, starting in like the end of August all the way through October pretty much. It was not good for me, to say the least. There was about 2 months there where I was going out 3 nights a week and drinking every single night, and I was getting pretty drunk. And I was spending a lot of money. I never blacked out. I never threw up because of alcohol. Like, I would always handle myself well. It never got out of hand. That's something that I'm grateful about with myself, because I do have a level of self-awareness to where I know when I stop myself before shit gets bad. I'm still a human, so I obviously have my moments and I go through shit. I'm not perfect by any means, but I have got to a point where I can be like, this is becoming a problem. It was last October when I was like, I'm not well. I was really depressed. But yeah, I was drinking a lot because that was the only way I knew how to make friends in Florida. I had made a few friends by going out. So I was like, why don't I just keep doing this? But to me, when you make friends going out, at least for me, I would try to make plans with them outside of the bars, but they never wanted to. So I was like, I guess I got to go to the bars to see these people. In hindsight, I don't want to be friends with you if the only time you want to see me is when we're both drunk. What's the basis of this friendship? Us getting drunk? I don't want to be your friend then. If you don't want to see me outside of the bars, I don't want to see you at all. That's why I was drinking so much, because I thought I had to make friends. I didn't know anyone, and I was also so lonely. The second I got to Florida, I'm not kidding, the second I got to Florida, I regretted it. I was like, I should have stayed in Boston, because I adore Boston. Everywhere I go, I miss Boston. And I love Raleigh, but I still miss Boston. But I got to Florida and I was like, I made a horrible mistake. And my friend was with me for the first week that I was there, so I didn't really feel it until he left. I remember dropping him off at the airport and I just felt such a pit in my stomach. I've never felt that way before. It was just like, I fucked up so bad. I made such a massive mistake. I should not have moved here. And I instantly felt so sad, and I instantly felt so lonely. So I was doing anything I could to meet people to try to like fill that void rather than just sitting with myself. This was like the first time. I had just signed a 13-month lease. There was no, in my eyes, at the time I felt there was no getting out of it. I was like, I'm just going to have to stay here and hate it in a place where I'm a 17-hour drive away from my family. Like, I hate this. I didn't know anyone there. I did not like it. So that's why I started going out so much. Yeah, October came around, and the loneliness and the existing sadness, and also I was just, when I wasn't drinking, obviously I wasn't drinking every night, but I didn't see anyone else. I did make friends eventually that did want to hang out with me outside of drinking, which was awesome, and they are such sweethearts, and I love them to death. They really helped me through that time without even knowing it. Like, they didn't know I was sad, but it's just the people who come into your life at the right time. But we would see each other maybe once a week. Every other night, I was just sort of sat with myself. Every other day, I was just sort of sat with myself and my feelings. And I dealt with a lot, and I was really sad as I was working through a lot of things. You know, it was within the first few months of ever moving out of my family's home. I only lived in Boston for like 2.5 months. And when I first moved out of there, I got hit with so much shit. So I was sitting with a lot of heavy emotions. I was already sad. I was really lonely. And then I was drinking a lot on top of it, which just made my mental health so much worse. I would go out and like all of these people that I were friends with, all of the people that I was meeting at bars, besides my 3 close friends that I just told you about, it was such unfulfilling, empty friendships, and I hated it. I hated the feeling of like just being drunk. I hated waking up feeling hungover. I felt like shit. I knew what I was putting in my body wasn't good. I just was depressed, and I really felt like ass. Truly, at the end of the day, my body did not feel good. My mind did not feel good. I hated it. So it was around last Halloween where I was like, I'm going to stop drinking. So I would still go out to bars, but I wouldn't drink. And it was awesome because then I would go home at like 11 and I was like, damn, I don't want to drink anymore. I really don't want to drink anymore. So I would have, and also it wasn't hard for me. Like, quitting weed was definitely a challenge. Alcohol was so easy because I was just like, this shit sucks. I don't want to. And also I think it did make it easier because I didn't do it for that long. Like, to me, I was like, that was awful, but it was really only about 2 months. And then in the following months, I would drink here and there. Like, I'd have one drink every few months. And honestly, that remained the same up until recently. You know, I moved down to Raleigh and I went out with a friend and I had like a drink or two, but it's just like, I don't enjoy it. And then I went out with a friend again and I ordered a rum and Coke and I had one sip and I was like, I don't want this shit. So I didn't drink it. And I'll do the same with smoking. I'll smoke here and there, but it's just like, I'll take one hit and I'm like, I don't want this. I don't like it anymore. I'll wake up feeling like shit after I smoke, even if it's one hit, where it's like I feel it on my eyes, I drag through the day, and it's just like, it's not worth it. So at this point, I'm just like, I don't call myself sober because it's like, I'm not against any of it, you know? Just for me, it's like, I don't want to. That's where I'm at right now. It's not like I don't do this because it's bad for me. It's like, I just don't want to. So that's where I'm at, and that's why I quit smoking, and that's why I quit drinking. If you want me to talk more, I don't know why I said it like that. If you want me to talk more about any of this, let me know. I don't know if this made any sense, as it was truthfully off the top of the dome. I didn't write any notes or really prepare at all coming into this, but the reason why I did it is because I stopped liking it. Both of them made me feel like shit, and both of them weren't good for my mental health. And I really started to actually care about myself and realize I deserved to be taken care of and that I didn't want to do things that made me feel like shit anymore. I have a whole episode on my podcast, there's also the video version of it on my YouTube. My podcast is called Growing Pains, but it's on self-sabotage, and I talk a lot about it there, where it's like, I used to do things because I thought I deserved to feel bad, so that's why I would smoke weed knowing I didn't like it. So if you want to learn more about self-sabotage, if you struggle with doing things that you know aren't good for you or that make you feel bad or that you don't want to do but you do it anyways and you don't know why, I'd highly recommend listening to that episode on self-sabotage. I also have an episode, and I'll link all these down below so you can find them easily. I have an episode that was probably a year ago now that I posted on how I quit smoking weed, or I think it's titled How to Stop Being Dependent on Weed, and I'll link that down below as well. But if you want to hear anything else about my experience with weed or alcohol, if you want to hear stories about it, funny stories, if you want me to be serious and talk more about whatever, let me know. Comment down below. I'm always here to help, but it was just sitting on my heart today, girl, and I thought I should get on here and talk about this because it's something that I wish I would have heard more people talk about. It's a really isolating feeling, and you're not alone in that. You can do anything you put your heart to. If you want to quit, know that you can. Know that you are far more capable than you think you are. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Comment down below your experience if you want to, if you related to this, if you resonated with this. I'd love to know your take. Subscribe, turn on post notifications, follow me on Instagram at @theAllisonLaRue. And with that being said, I'll see you next time, friends. I love you so much. You deserve healthy love, and you deserve to feel good. Bye.